Good morning and welcome to our Board of Commissioners meeting this November 14th, 2023. I'm pleased today that we have Reverend Joya Adams, who will be bringing our invocation, and she's from Bethany United Methodist Church. Our invocation will be followed by Deputy Jamie Hall. And I will ask those of you who are willing and able, please stand for both our invocation and our pledge.
This morning, I'd like to offer a blessing from a book by John O'Donohue to bless the space between us. For sometimes we need words that aren't quite our own to get to a deep truth that's within each of us. This is a blessing for one who holds power. For many of us in this room hold power in many different ways. May the gift of leadership awaken in you as a vocation, keep you mindful of the providence that calls you to serve. As high over the mountains the eagle spreads its wings, may your perspective be larger than the view from the foothills. When the way is flat and dull in times of gray endurance, may your imagination continue to evoke horizons. When thirst burns in times of drought, may you be blessed to find the wells. May you have the wisdom to read time clearly and know when the seed of change will flourish. In your heart, may there be a sanctuary for the stillness where clarity is born. May your work be infused with passion and creativity and have the wisdom to balance compassion and challenge. May your soul find the graciousness to rise above the fester of small mediocrities. May your power never become a shell wherein your heart would silently atrophy. May you welcome your own vulnerability as the ground where healing and truth join. May integrity of soul be your first ideal, the source that will guide and bless your work. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At our last meeting, we had significant discussion regarding a resolution as following the terrorist attack on Israel, October 7th, members of our board felt compelled to condemn the act of terrorism. In the weeks since that terrorist attack, the situation has evolved, and it has inflamed the emotions of many in our community impacted by what is going on overseas. Our board has received hundreds of emails, and we've met with various community groups and leaders. It's through those conversations that it became quite crystal clear that there's little our board can say or do that will soothe emotions, repair relationships, or impact the ongoing situation. What our board can do, however, is make our county a safe place for all of our residents to live, to work, to enjoy. The board, our residents and businesses, we all can foster an environment where we can all practice our religion and express our beliefs. To that end, our public safety agencies continue to work with various groups to provide protection and use resources to avoid any potential trouble. This board will continue to condemn acts of hate speech and intimidation and encourage those in public safety to do what they can do to identify and prosecute those responsible. And most importantly, what I and this board can do is listen. We can listen to those who are impacted by this conflict. We can understand how it affects their lives here in Cobb County. And we can learn how to continue to make Cobb County a place where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued. With that, I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We have 3 resolutions that will be brought to you today. The first one is to present a proclamation to the National Society of Daughters of the American Revolution, American Indians Committee, designating November as National American Indian Heritage Month. I see those who are part of that proclamation are already making their way up front, and Commissioner Gambrill will join you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. It's a great honor for me to present this to you on behalf of Commissioner Burrell. This is a proclamation whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and Indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August of 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim November as National American Indian Heritage Month in Cobb County and urge all of our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. This, the 14th day of November, 2023.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the Board of Commissioners for issuing this proclamation. I have with me today Tony Harris, who is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. If you have had the opportunity to tour the Cherokee Garden at Cobb County's Green Meadows Preserve, then that educational and beautiful opportunity was the brainchild of Tony Harris. And also with me today is Regent of the Fielding Lewis chapter of DAR. When you say Native American heritage, it is more than history. It is an inheritance of traditions and values and citizenship. You may not know that American Indians have dual citizenship. They are citizens of their respective Indian nations, but they are also citizens of the United States as of 1924, I believe. So they, the 500 plus nations of Indians throughout America are viable communities of citizens and with a rich heritage. And we appreciate this opportunity to accept this proclamation, and we appreciate your joining us in saluting Native American Heritage Month. The name changed a couple of years ago. Thank you so much.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Our next proclamation will be brought by Commissioner Sheffield to present a check in recognition of High Performance Sports and Training Solutions, LLC. That organization is a recipient of our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Grant.
Thank you, and I am presenting on behalf of Commissioner Burrell a check to High Performance Sports and Training Solutions, LLC, for the Entrepreneur Innovation Grant. And Sabrina, I don't know if you want to add anything.
This is the entrepreneurship grant offered by Cobb County Economic Development Department. It's fully funded by the Development Authority of Cobb County. We support entrepreneurs and small businesses throughout the county who meet our requirements and, of course, are located within the county and are creating jobs. So.
Awesome. I want to thank everybody. Thank the board. Brittany, I appreciate you. And just, I guess, real quick, when I got the grant, I found out I got the grant. My mom was the first person I called. And we were just talking about how far our family had came. And not far from here, probably about not even 10 minutes, there used to be some projects right over, I want to say it was, I believe it was called the Lawrenceville Projects or something like that. And I was talking to my mom, and I remember this story that I read in the Bible, and it was a man named Joseph, and he named his son, one of his sons, Ephraim, and the name meant that God had made him fruitful in the land of his affliction. And I was telling my mom how that was such a parallel, how in the same city where we were once living in the projects, and even at one point when I was extremely young, my family was homeless. It was my mom, my dad, and me and my two older brothers. But I remember living in the projects. I don't remember being homeless, but I remember living in the projects. And I just thought about the parallel of that story and just, really how far God had brought our family. And so I want to appreciate everyone who had anything to do with allowing me to have this opportunity. You could trust that I'm going to do well with the resources and do the right thing. And so I just say thank you to everybody that had anything to do with it.
And our final proclamation will be in recognition of Columbus Day, as also being recognized as Indigenous Peoples Day. If we can have Megan or anyone else with Atlanta's American Indigenous Association, please. Meet me up front, thank you. I'm so happy to meet you. This has been a long time coming. Thank you, likewise. I appreciate you being here today, and I'm very glad to present this proclamation issued by our board. On the second Monday in October, on what is traditionally called Columbus Day, many states have recognized Indigenous Peoples Day as an alternative since the colonization of America took place on land inhabited by indigenous tribes. And whereas about 10,000 years ago, Native tribes lived in Georgia, the Mississippian culture existed from about 800 to 1600 AD and produced some of the most complex societies of early North America. The most intact Mississippian culture site in the Southeast is preserved at the Etowah Indian Mounds in Bartow County. And during the 18th and 19th century, the Cherokee Indians occupied most of the land north and west of the Chattahoochee River, including almost all of Cobb County. By 1827, the Cherokee Nation succeeded in developing a written constitution, an elected council, a principal chief, and a Supreme Court. And whereas the U.S. government, after negotiating a fraudulent treaty, sent troops into the Cherokee Nation in 1838 to 1839, they forced the tribe out of their homes and sent them to Oklahoma on the infamous Trail of Tears. A few managed to evade capture and remained for years afterward including one named Old Slope, who lived along a creek in East Cobb that now bears his name. Therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, hereby proclaim October 9th as Indigenous Peoples Day in Cobb to honor the resilience of our nation's first inhabitants. This, the 14th day of November, 2023.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting us here today. Emek niktak achemanu pulelakat sana yukpa. I'm glad to be speaking with you today. Miigwech mamagosnan, nimigwech wendan ore monogizek. Thank you, Creator. I'm thankful for this good day and for all of you being here to recognize our Native American brothers and sisters. My name is Megan Dickin, and I am a Cobb County resident, and I just greeted you in the languages of my Indigenous ancestors. Through my mother, I am an enrolled member of the United Homa Nation of Louisiana. We are descended from the great chief Rosalie Courteau, who led our people to safety in the bayou before our tribe was scattered in the 1800s, but reunited in the 1970s. On my father's side, I have heritage from a tribe of the Great Lakes region called the Potawatomi. We are keepers of the fire. There are 574 federally recognized tribes in the U.S. alone, with hundreds more that are only state recognized. Before colonization in 1492, there were more. Atlanta is home to about 6,000 indigenous people of various tribes from the United States and other countries. Due to the effects of diaspora, colonization, and modern living, 70% of Native Americans live in metropolitan areas, often alone, disconnected from their people and culture. I am here representing the AIPA, the Atlanta Indigenous Peoples Association, which was created in 2017, not only to provide cultural education to the public, but also to bring isolated Native people together for social networking and solidarity. It can be very lonely being the invisible minority. In the country in which yours, excuse me, the country in which yours were the original people, the country we once called Turtle Island. Here in Cobb County, we are on the land of the Muskogee Creek Nation and the Salaguwettii, or as you may know them, the Cherokee, and smaller tribes called the Yuchi and the Miccosukee. We honor these ancestors and hold sacred their land. I'd like to tell you why we, the AIPA, are grateful to the Cobb County Commissioners for recognizing us today. Imagine, if you will, living here in Atlanta, but instead of being surrounded by tall buildings and streets, you live in a village with homes made of wooden frames and thatched roofs. You hear children playing and people laughing and working. Your community has sophisticated trade routes, communication systems, organized government, and humble people respecting each other and Mother Earth. Imagine the generosity you show to the European settlers who came to this country, teaching them the ways of the land, helping them find food and shelter. Now, imagine, after all of that, being taken into chains and becoming the first slaves of this nation. Your children being ripped from your arms to be sent to boarding schools for a proper education, only to be beaten, often to death, for speaking their native language. Imagine the heartbreak as you are forced from your home to walk 1,000 miles to Oklahoma, your feet painful and bleeding, watching your relatives die from starvation and disease along the way. Now you live on a government reservation with nothing. Your sacred heirlooms, lost along the journey. You are prohibited from practicing your ceremonies, dancing and singing, leaving you feeling empty and sad. You cannot protest because you have no rights. You are given only rations of flour, sugar, and oil to prepare a meal to fill your belly. Do you feel the helplessness as you watch your people get sick from this new lifestyle and die from diseases like diabetes, alcoholism, and suicide? Do you fear for yourself or the women in your family that they may go missing or end up murdered? Do you pray to the Creator to be delivered from this nightmare and to be returned to your sacred homeland? Most people don't know much about us beyond the story of the first Thanksgiving, highlighting the Native Americans' generosity toward the Pilgrims. They don't know that in the 1500s, the people of this area and the Southeast, including my people, the Homa, became the first slaves of this country and were also sent to Cuba and the Caribbean. When there weren't enough of us anymore, they brought slaves from Africa. Native American children were ripped from their homes and sent to brutal boarding schools, some never to return home. This went on for hundreds of years until just recently, 1997, when the last boarding school closed, merely 26 years ago. Some people know of the Trail of Tears, which forcibly removed the Cherokee and Creek from this very land in 1830, walking thousands of miles, dying along the way. But many do not know that our people were not even considered citizens of their very own land until 1924, barely a century ago. Neither is it common knowledge that Native Americans, especially on reservations, currently experience high rates of diabetes, alcoholism, and suicide due to the government's unhealthy food rations, poor living conditions, and generational trauma they've experienced. Additionally, did you know that murder is the third leading cause of death for Native women? The murder rate for women living on reservations is 10 times higher than the national average. This is shocking because we only make up 2% of the population, of the US population. This is the uncomfortable truth, which must be spoken of and recognized. We will no longer be the invisible minority. But we are resilient. We are still here. We remain. I originally wrote this speech for Indigenous Peoples Day in October, but it was rescheduled, so I would like to revisit that and say that it is not just a counter-narrative to Columbus Day. We cannot erase history, nor should we. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. In fact, Columbus Day was created by President Harrison in 1892 in response to the discrimination, including a lynching, which early Italian Americans experienced here in the States. With that proclamation in 1892, the Italians were honored and recognized for their pain and perseverance. And that is good. Now it is high time, and dare I say, much overdue, to honor and recognize the Indigenous people of this country as well, the people who have suffered even greater atrocities on their very own land. Both Indigenous Peoples Day and Native American Heritage Month give us the opportunity to celebrate the contribution of Native peoples, past and present, to acknowledge our resilience in the face of adversity. I am not here to instill guilt or shame to my fellow human beings. No matter our color on the outside, we are all the same on the inside. Our ancestors always knew that. I am here to tell our stories in the hopes that together we can provide help and healing to our people, our communities, and our lands, living together in a good way to create a better future for all. As the famous leader Sitting Bull once said, "Let us put our minds together and see what we can make for our children." I will leave you with this quote from one of the greatest spiritual leaders of the last century, Frank Fools Crow. "Survival of the world depends on sharing what we have and working together. If we don't, the whole world will die. First the planet, then the people." Thank you. Miigwech Yakuki. Thank you. And I'd like to tell people about the powwow this weekend. If you are interested in learning more about Native American heritage and customs and practices, there is a powwow this weekend in Little Five Points. And it's this, what is this weekend? The 17th and 18th? But if you look up Little Five Points, there's a powwow this weekend. You can see traditional dancing and vendors and even try some fry bread.
Very good.
Thank
you
you
so very much.
Finish, Lisa.
Good. 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Heart will be very full this Thanksgiving with much to reflect on. Thank you so much, Megan, for being here. We are now moving into the public hearing portion of our meeting. Our public hearing will be brought by Economic Development, and it will be to conduct a public hearing prior to the establishment of a contract where fees are likely to exceed $100,000 for consultant services to develop an economic development strategic plan. Sabrina, you can. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, and County Manager. The Economic Development Department requests that the Board of Commissioners open the public hearing for employment of consultant services where fees will likely exceed $100,000 for the purposes of developing an economic development strategic plan for Cobb County.
Wonderful. For our public hearing, we have an unlimited number of speaking opportunities for anyone who wants to comment on the Economic Development Strategic Plan and the Economic Development Strategic Plan only. You'll have up to 3 minutes to do so. With that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for anyone who desires to address the board on this matter.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman.
Good morning.
And Commissioners. Probably the same complaint I come up with every time, which is it's going to be $100,000 or more. We don't know if that's $200,000. We don't know if that's $500,000. But also is that if government is supposed to, like, it's about public safety, making sure that we have our police and fire, streets, infrastructure. I'm really uncomfortable, and having been in the private sector, I've had businesses. Not all. I never got a handout from the government to fund me. I had to eat peanut butter crackers, and sometimes I was a success, sometimes I wasn't. And I'm happy that there's, entrepreneurial endeavors. I don't know if that is the job of the government. And I understand we have this whole economic strategic plan or whole economic development group, but isn't that what the Chamber of Commerce is for? I mean, it just seems to me that this is where government mushrooms into, and then we can do this and we can do that. And it's all feel good and it's all kumbaya and it's nice, but it ain't the job of the government to be doing that. And so for families that are thinking, oh my God, how am I going to feed my kids, fill up for my gas, my car's broken down and I can't afford this, and it's $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month rent, even in a modest place. So when we see monies like, it's going to be $100,000 and then we're going to do this, I really would appreciate if it would rein in the spending and look at what's really happening in our country. Because it's not like a boom of business right now. It's a boom of like, can I get by? And that does not reflect when we're spending $100,000. And again, you know what? I mean, these are coming up all the time. Business development. How can we plan for this, plan for that? And then you get these consultant companies that aren't reflecting what Cobb County wants. They're reflecting what kind of like the World Economic Forum and what Deloitte and Accenture and Chrysalis Lab or whatever, what they want. So then that doesn't really reflect what we want. So I'd love for, it seems.
Ms. Rosman, sorry, you're 3 minutes
Thanks.
up.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers that desire to address Cobb County's Economic Development Strategic Plan? Okay, not seeing any. Sabrina, if you don't mind approaching, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I just wanted to address at least one thing that was stated with respect to not knowing if this strategic plan will cost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, et cetera. Can you talk about the process of which will identify the actual cost of the strategic plan as it moves forward?
We will receive proposals from interested agencies who are interested in conducting the strategic plan for the county. We'll review those to choose the most qualified and the most affordable. We are anticipating the cost to exceed $100,000. However, this will not be an additional impact to the county budget, as the dollars remaining in the Economic Development Fund from ARPA will be used to pay for this study.
Thank you. And I presume, County Manager, that when we do get a proposal that we select, it will come back to the public so they will see the actual dollar amount?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's just for state purposes and requirements, we have to advertise anything that goes out for that amount that can exceed that threshold. But the public will be aware. You'll have opportunity to see the specific cost before that moves forward.
Yes, it will come back by agenda.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioners, do you have any questions for Sabrina? Yes, please go ahead.
Another question was kind of inferred as far as what is the process for receiving one of these grants through economic development for businesses?
The grants, the entrepreneurship grant that we issued earlier, there's an application process for those grants. We have an outside committee of stakeholders who are not county employees who review those applications. They include business owners, small business owners, and our partners at the Cobb Chamber of Commerce as well as Cobb Travel Tourism. They review each application that we receive for accuracy, completeness, job creation, and for the intended purposes of the use of funds for the grant. And then they'll review those applications to see if they approve. Once those applications are approved or not, the maximum grant amount is $10,000, and it could be anywhere from $0 to $10,000 that's approved. But once those are approved, then those approved applications come back to the board for your consideration as well before those funds are awarded.
Thank you. And just wanted to clarify some information as where those funds come from for those grants. The Development Authority provides the funding for those grants. They work in partnership with the county for our distribution of those grants. The Development Authority receives their funding through fees that they get by helping businesses obtain incentives here at the county. And so we have a partnership with them, again, in administering the program, but we're not using any of our general fund tax dollars for those programs. Okay. So with that, I don't believe that there's a vote needed today, just a public hearing.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now move into public comment. Bill, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. As the board provides the podium for public comment, it's appropriate to review the related meeting rules. When you come forward to speak, please state your name and if you are speaking on behalf of an organization. All comments should be addressed through the chair. Public comment is not a dialogue with the board, but an opportunity for speakers to provide their comments to the board. The comments should not be impertinent, derogatory, offensive. To that end, the board encourages, regardless of the topic, for the audience to be respectful and courteous to the speakers. Everyone attending this meeting should give others the right to both listen and to be heard by treating each other with civility. Statements made during the public comments portion do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the board or the administration of Cobb County government. And I'll just remind everybody that there is a timer on the podium for you to keep track of your 5-minute time. The first speaker is Ibrahim Awad.
Good morning. My name is Ibrahim Awad. I am a son, a father, and a husband of 3, Jenna, Jamal, and Judy, 3 Palestinian American children that often don't listen to me when I treat them unfairly. I also write poetry, and I have written a poem for this occasion. At the corner of my mother's eyes are the telltale lines of a recurring story, the story of Rachel Corey. We have seen the bulldozers steered intentionally, dismembering bodies for the world to see. I have watched the videos today, and I felt the helplessness before, but tomorrow's indiscriminate missiles will stun me once more. A man with no land is a man with no destiny. Do you not understand? But most look on merrily through frozen blue eyes, not a teardrop of consolation. Yet the glares prod me like glass knives. Do I condemn the atrocity reported by the Israeli Times? I am interrogated specifically as if I have something to hide. All the while, my family is crushed to death by state-sponsored genocide. It is implied that I am sinisterly living a concocted lie. I show you mangled corpses that Biden helped unalive. Casual cruelty. Nobody wants you, you sigh. The Arab countries have resigned. The Jews were dehumanized, demonized back then, much like the Palestinians. Just rewind to 1935. Amused by my chivalry, provided by Channel 9, some collapse in giggles on their sofa while my home collapses on mine. The Native Americans were once here, so unless you're Indigenous and Cherokee, how can you possibly feel my soul impaled by the imperialistic spear? How will it ever heal? When I verbalize my ache, fists start to shake. How can there be God's chosen occupying land, bloodstained and stolen? Equity in your resolution is the start of a solution. Innocent lives were taken. It's been unequivocally proven, Israeli and Palestinian. And words left unchosen defy our Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. And when their remembrance is made eternal, a balanced eulogy is expected, even at a Board of Commissioners' funeral. And as our Native American sister Megan just remarked, we are resilient, we are still here, we remain. Thank you.
The next speaker is Musa Gornarari.
Good morning. My name is Musa Ganayem, G-H-A-N-A-Y-E-M, and I'm not here to tell you a poem, that's for sure. I am here because, well, let's just start with this. It's very apropos and courageous for this body to recognize the Native Americans. It's long overdue. And I stand here before you as a Palestinian coming to speak on behalf of the children of Gaza, the children who have no voice. I'm a Palestinian who spent many months in Palestine and Israel, two countries that deserve to exist alongside each other. I'm a Christian Palestinian, undoubtedly the smallest minority in this room. I have relatives that are Palestinian citizens and Israeli citizens. One thing I've learned in my life: Palestinian lives do not matter. We are viewed as children of a lesser God, despite our religion. Our voices are silenced, and our careers are threatened. Some of us for simply being Palestinian. According to media today, my existence is anti-Semitic. My existence, if you can comprehend that. The fact that I'm alive is anti-Semitic. My grief is anti-Semitic. My anger is anti-Semitic. While the rest of everyone here can feel whatever they want to feel freely, I can't, despite being invested, having property, having family that are directly affected by this right now. I condemn the brutal slaughter of the Israeli citizens on October 7th, and I struggle to understand how one cannot sympathize with the murder of the Palestinian people who've been under a brutal occupation for most of the last century. Let me ask you something. By a show of hands, can you tell me who here supports Hamas? Right. By a show of hands, can you tell me who here supports pedophilia? Those questions are just as ridiculous as each other. We are not children of a lesser God. We as Palestinians are not worth less. We're perceived as lesser human beings. We have a congressman saying there are no innocent Palestinians. And I want to be clear about one thing. This is not about Judaism or Semitism at all. This is about the brutal occupation of the last 75 years. You can support both communities without being anti-Semitic. You can mourn and not be anti-Semitic. And you can be angry and not be anti-Semitic. For anybody here that dares come up and say this started on October 7th, you are deliberately manipulating the conversation, and you're doing it on purpose to make sure you focus on the one thing and ignore the atrocities that have been going on since the Nakba.
Sir, I'm sorry, your time's up.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Sig Giordano.
Did you say we should keep our own time? Okay. It says it. Okay. Thank you. Where's the? Okay. It's my first time here. Thank you. So my name is Dr. Sig, or I also go by Sarah Giordano.
I'm a Jewish American person, and I'm a professor at Kennesaw State University here in Cobb County. So I'm glad that we have been able to hear from a Muslim speaker and a Christian speaker, and now a Jewish speaker. And I think one of the things that I want to point out to start is that we're actually, all three of us are on the same side, and that's against genocide. So please, one thing to take away from this, commissioners and those of you here who might not know, is that the two sides are not Jewish and Palestinian. The sides are pro or against genocide, pro or against settler colonialism, colonization. This commission started by saying, I thought that we're against colonization, so I think that the next steps are pretty clear from here. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I would take my time before having to get to meetings today at work up at Kennesaw. So I am named after my great-grandfather, Sigmund Weizsäcker, who was killed in a concentration camp in Germany in 1942 for being Jewish. My grandparents were the only surviving members of their families. This is why I am here today, because genocide is genocide. If it's happening to Jewish people, who I'm related to, or if it's happening to Palestinian people, these are the people that I am going to stand by. I cannot stand silent. And when we want to talk about what led to the Holocaust, that would be it's very important to do that, as it is to understand the colonization that allowed the murder and the other things that our speaker spoke earlier about to Indigenous people here. We must learn from this history. The history is not to learn that one group of people needs to be protected at the cost of others. What we need to learn from history is that we always must stand with the oppressed. We always must stop killing. We know today that over 11,000 Palestinians in Gaza have already been murdered using weapons, using money from the US government. This does matter to those of us standing here and living in the United States, wherever we come from, wherever we are. You may hear from people today who I would say are confused, and it makes sense, and I've been there. I didn't always understand what this history was because we're taught it in a certain way to keep the kind of power that exists in place. So I was told Jews and Arabs hate each other, right? And when I had Arab friends, we laughed about how is it that we're friends even though we're enemies? But then I took classes, and this is why I'm a professor today, because education's really important. And when I took classes, I realized that actually what led to the Nazi Holocaust was nationalism and the science of eugenics. The idea that one group of people, or actually multiple groups of people, were threats to the Aryan race, and to protect the German soul, body, the German non-Jewish citizens, non-disabled citizens, non-queer citizens, they had to actually murder and exterminate all the rest of the people. This is the lessons we need to understand. I know I only have 5 minutes, and these are a lot of lessons to take some classes at Kennesaw. No, this is not just a plug for my own classes. But I want to make sure that I say a couple things. So most important, I want to make sure that everybody here knows that there's a diversity of thought among Jewish people, and actually the majority of Jewish people today, based on the information that I know and the people that I know, actually are against genocide and actually are in support of Palestinian people. So it's actually the minority of Jewish voices. They might have a lot of funding, they might be part of government bodies and have a lot of power. That doesn't mean they speak for the majority of Jewish people. So please, please stop saying that Jewish people think this. It's just not true. I'm here to say that. Whatever you do, please do not support the previous proposed resolution that stated unwavering support for Israel. Israel is a nation state. It's a country. It's a government that's carrying out a brutal, brutal attack on Gaza right now, and then we can talk about the history of what's happened. But right now, we need a ceasefire immediately. People need to stop dying. My friends' families are being killed right now. Third, I want to say that please speak out whenever you can and do whatever you can, because this is something that matters to U.S. citizens and people living here. And finally, freedom of speech is really important right now, and on college campuses and in K through 12, people are being silenced who are speaking about this. So please, anything you can do in Cobb for my students at Kennesaw State or in the public school system, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
The next speaker is Faith Schatzman.
Hi, and thank you for letting me speak. I am Faith Schatzman. I am a resident of Cobb County. I originally came to you today as a member of the Jewish organization Hadassah, which is composed of 3,000 members in the Atlanta area, 6,000 members across Georgia, 300,000 women in the United States. However, before I get into my speech that I had originally prepared, I would like to answer some of the previous speakers' points. I'm not a speaker. I come here under protest because it's not my thing. I am not as eloquent. I can't write a poem. I am not a professor. However, I don't think that, so again, I'm speaking for Hadassah, but right now I'm speaking for myself. I don't think the previous speaker has the facts. She may be a professor, but she has her facts. She has only her opinions. So don't take it as gospel just because she has a PhD or a master's. Nobody is for genocide. I weep for the children of Palestine. I also weep for the children of Israel. So now I'll go into my speech. As a longtime resident of Cobb County and a member of Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America, I'll skip all the numbers because we already went through that. We are extremely disappointed that the board did not pass and does not intend to discuss further the proclamation submitted by Commissioner Joanne Burrell on October 24th in condemnation of Hamas. Didn't condemn the Palestinian people. We understand the Palestinians are in harm's way and they're unfairly being killed. But that was not what the resolution was about. The resolution was about condemning Hamas and supporting Israel's rights to defend themselves. Hamas is a verified terrorist organization whose motto is from the river to the sea. And all these people that demonstrate keep shouting out from the river to the sea. And what that means is let's get rid of Israel. There is no doubt in my mind that a two-state solution would have been a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, every time it comes up, it's put down not by the Jewish state. Hadassah weeps for all the victims of the war. We fund 2 hospitals in Israel that treat equally all people, including Muslims, Arabs, and Palestinians. Hospitals whose staff include all races and creeds working together to cure all the sick, repair all the wounded, and which does research to eradicate diseases for the benefit of all, including Palestinians. Hospitals that send experts to disaster areas to aid in recovery and teach field hospital techniques. Hospitals that do not hide ammunition and bombs in their basement so the enemy can be blamed for the collateral damage when attempts are made to eradicate those weapons. In summary, the proclamation requested is to condemn Hamas and support Israel's right to defend itself. Hamas has made no secret of their intent on the destruction of Israel and has openly admitted that more October 7ths will occur if they are allowed to continue. If not now, when? What would you do if they came for your family? I understand the horror, and I understand the grief that is felt by the Palestinians, all of them. But there's also horror and grief felt by the Israelis. And now I'm talking not as for Hadassah, but for me personally. The Washington Post published a highly detailed account of Hamas's plan for the October 7th attack. It includes the terror group's desire to strike deeper into Israel and its horrifying calculations that its atrocities would no doubt mean deaths to Palestinians in Gaza. In addition, last weekend, the IDF supplied 300 liters of fuel to the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City for urgent medical needs, but Hamas prevented the medical center from receiving it. As Hamas continues to use civilians as human shields at the hospital, terrorists are embedded within groups of civilians at the hospital's entrance. How is one supposed to fight against terrorists doing these things? I listened online to Commissioner Richardson's and Burrell's comments at the end of the October meeting. They said it's so much better than I could ever. So I asked you, how can you table the Commissioner's proclamation and just move on as if nothing happened on October 7th? I understand this history before October 7th. I understand they need to work on that. And I agree they needed...
Ma'am, sorry, your time's up.
Okay, great, good.
David Brooks. Next speaker is David Brooks.
Good morning. I am David Brooks, resident of District 2. I had some slides. I'm not sure. Oh, perfect. Yeah, District 2, following some pretty heavy and complex topics. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more local, hopefully of benefit to everyone in our community. I represent a loose group of citizens who are concerned about the pedestrian safety along the Holt Road corridor. I think this is an excellent place to improve walkability in this community. There are numerous neighborhoods conjoining the Holt Road corridor, Wheeler High School, the New East Valley, now K-12, lots of people walking to and from school. Several churches supporting the broader community in this area, Sewell Mill Library and Cultural Center, as well as Sewell Mill Park and the surrounding area. I'm not sure what we call that. All these things are in reasonable walking distance from one another, and I think improving this situation would benefit a lot of people. Sorry for the word soup here. I think pedestrian safety suffers. There's an existing crosswalk between both Wheeler High School and East Valley. A student was hit by a bus and seriously injured earlier this year. She was not using the crosswalk, but who can blame her? The crosswalk was broken at the time, and frankly, the existing placement of the crosswalk is not really where people want to cross the street there anyways, so it doesn't see all the use that it likely could. South end of Holt Road, on my graph here, lacks sidewalks entirely. There are people who live there, conjoining neighborhoods. I have seen a lady in the past several weeks walking her dog, literally walking her dog, picking it up, and walking around a blind corner, trying to just continue her morning activity there. This was actually on the 2016 SPLOST. It required more study and funding, but this is already on the county radar to improve. And as of yet, I don't know where it stands, but there doesn't seem to be any action on that. North end of Holt Road, where it hits Robinson Road, there's kind of a crosswalk to nowhere. It just sort of dumps you out into grass and dirt. And then if you live in one of the conjoining neighborhoods, as I do, you must make a difficult decision to either walk along an unimproved grass embankment or use the existing sidewalk and then kind of cross the road around a blind corner to get into that neighborhood, of which there are 13 to 15 students who attend the schools up the road, and they're certainly within walking distance. So I think these are issues that could likely be improved. Assist there, just stuck. Okay, well. I will talk from my notes then, that's okay. Moving along, the situation for cars is not much worse. There is sort of an imaginary four-way stop that seems to occur at Holt Road and the entrance to the Wheeler carpool every morning. There is no posted signage that anyone should stop there, and as a result, if you choose to actually obey, there we go, the posted signage, which is nothing, and just go straight on the road as if you're supposed to do, the left-turning cars, as you're seeing in this screenshot from my dash cam, will make an erroneous assumption that you are stopping when in fact you were coming through. So risk of head-on collision is somewhat high here. Students are dropping off on Club Drive next to the elementary school, which there is posted signage that you should not do, but they do it anyways. And you're forced to make a decision here if you choose to do that of I need to either wind through the residential neighborhood of Beverly Hills or I need to make a somewhat precarious U-turn in the grass to get back out on Holt Road, which is usually choked at this point of the day. That's really, I'm here to raise awareness of that. Happy to have further conversations around what could be done here, but I think it's a good opportunity to improve the walkability of this corridor. Thank you, and then I have some references there for the materials that I shared. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Sadia Baman.
Good morning, Commissioners. May I cede my time to Ghada Al-Najjar?
No, ma'am, it's for you. You can't give it to someone else. That's why there was a line for beforehand to talk. So it's your time.
Our intention today was to come and say thank you to the Commissioners for listening to our voices, listening to all our voices. I do not actually have a statement prepared because I understood from the news yesterday that you would simply make a statement on the Israeli-Palestine situation. Our community is here, just as I'm sure many of our Jewish friends and neighbors are also here, to express to you the pain and the anguish we all feel right now, the difficulty we have sleeping, even eating, because of the innocent life being taken in Israel and Gaza at this time. The nice lady from the Zionist organization spoke earlier, and I really appreciated that she showed regard for Palestinian lives. That goes a long way, I think, towards bringing the community together, and it means a lot. Just as we also sympathize and condemn the murder of Israeli civilians. I do want to emphasize, Israel has a lot of choices. Israel has chosen expansion over security. This has been said time and time again by multiple Israeli cabinet members. Right now, the reason we're calling this a genocide, as you see, many of us are very upset about the possibility of genocide right now, is because of the very racist and prevalent far-right speech coming out of not only the Israeli top officials of the government, but also some members of the American government. We want to emphasize to you, we appreciate you listening to us. We hope that in the future our community can come back together. And we do want to have our voices heard, and we appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, that's the last speaker for the first section of public speaking.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, why don't we go ahead and take a 3-minute break and come back for consent? We will continue to hold for our fourth commissioner prior to us moving into our consent agenda. Just ask for your patience. Okay, our meeting is now called back to order. We are moving into our consent agenda. For our consent agenda, those matters will scroll before the meeting and after the meeting, and they are voted on in bank. But before we vote on that agenda, commissioners, we have 2 items to add. I move first that we authorize the settlement with Vicki Lucas pursuant to the direction discussed yesterday in executive session on November 13th, and to authorize counsel to prepare and execute any necessary documents for the purpose of settling ongoing litigation.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'd like the clerk to note my statement that is found on page 241 of the current agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? We'll call the question. Thank you. The motion carries 4-0, with Commissioner Burrow being absent. Second, I'd like to move that we authorize the dismissal of all open predatory lending matters. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0, again noting Commissioner Burrow's absence. Thank you, Commissioners. I will now move to approve our consent agenda as it has been revised and to authorize execution of the necessary documents by the appropriate county personnel, noting that we have withdrawn agenda item number 22, that is from property management, to approve a contract for vending services.
I believe also item number 10 as well from water.
Number 10. Okay. We are also removing agenda item number 10 to authorize use of available state contracts for the procurement of new and replacement vehicles for the water system. Are there any other comments or questions regarding the consent agenda? Commissioner Gamble.
I do not support agenda item number 27.
Okay. We will note Commissioner Gamble's opposition to agenda item number 27, and that is for approving an MOU regarding warming shelters for the homeless on designated cold weather days. Are there any other matters to be addressed, Commissioners, before I call the question? All right, we'll go ahead. Yes.
Second.
Thank you. A second would be helpful. All right, we'll go ahead and call the question. The motion carries 4-0, again noting Commissioner Burrow's absence. We are now moving on to our regular agenda. We have 2 items, I believe, under ARPA, we brought by our Finance Director.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager. I'm going to be presenting the first of the 2 ARPA items. And our first item is to address an issue that when the board approved authorization of the American Rescue Plan Act to assist with the recruitment and retention of certified and sworn public safety employees within Cobb County Public Safety and the Sheriff's Office. When we did that, we initially contemplated funding that for 2 years using the American Rescue Funds. During our 2024 budget adoption, we found an alternative revenue or alternative funding source, and then we included that in our adopted budget. So what we're asking with this is we're going to remove the second year of ARPA funding and return it to undesignated contingency. Excuse me. So I'm asking the Board of Commissioners to approve the return of the previously appropriated funding to undesignated contingency within the ARPA fund, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents for said purpose.
Okay, so moved as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. One moment. Okay, we are now moving on to agenda item number 36, and that will be brought by Senior Services.
Good morning, Chairman Cupid, Commissioners, County Manager. Juana Bovani-Cosco with Senior Services and Kimberly Lemley here with Information Technology Services. Our item this morning is a joint item to request the Board of Commissioners to approve a sole source contract with EcoLane USA, Inc. for transportation scheduling software. This is part of a previously approved ARPA-funded project for Senior Services. It's called Project Safety. And we request the Board of Commissioners to approve this sole source contract with EcoLane for year one of the contract in the amount of $94,811 with ongoing maintenance for years 2 through 5 in the amount of $19,779. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll call the question. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
We're now moving on to the DA's tab. And they have one item.
Good morning, Chairwoman. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, County Manager. With me today, and I'd like them to stand, I have a group that's supporting this proposal. We have former District Attorney and current community advocate, Joyette Holmes. We have Noli Ewing, who is the son of a police officer who was killed by a DUI driver in 2021, and also with him, his sister, Kimbra. We have Lisa Hare, whose 8-year-old sister was murdered in 1976. The defendant is currently on death row, and the family still receives services for clemency and execution hearings. Michelle Kaur, whose 14-year-old daughter was sexually assaulted and murdered in 2016. The trial is still pending on that case. Catherine McGee and Joyce McGee, whose 18-year-old brother/son was murdered in 1999. The defendant was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, and the family still visits our office each year around the anniversary of Michael's death. Also, we have my staff. I have prosecutors, I have advocates and notification clerks, investigators, support staff, and my command staff. Would you all stand, please? You may be seated. We are here today asking the board to authorize the creation of 8 full-time and 1 part-time victim advocate position for the district attorney's office. To give you some background, we are mandated by Georgia law to provide direct support and notification services to victims of crime. These mandates include, but are not limited to, notification to all crime victims of court hearings and education about the stages involved in the criminal justice system. Our staff advocates also strive to improve the treatment of victims and witnesses by providing them with assistance and service necessary to speed their recovery from a criminal act and to support aid them as they move through an unfamiliar, complicated, and time-consuming criminal justice system. The most essential service provided includes keeping the victim notified of the status of their case and providing opportunities for them to participate in the process. We are their voice, educating victims from criminal justice system and ensuring each person is aware of any additional service programs in the community that might be able to assist them. Our advocate staff attends court with our victims. They assist with completing restitution and compensation requests. They assist in return of victims' personal property when allowed, and they assist with employers and creditors to alleviate negative consequences as a result of the criminal justice system. Our office ensures the rights granted them by law and afforded to them, and those rights are initiated in our Constitution, the Georgia Constitution, which we are all sworn to defend. In fiscal year 2022, the staff provided 152,537 direct and support notification services to over 12,000 victims. 11,321 of those victims required more than one service. In fiscal year 2023, that same staff provided 159,394 direct support notification services to over 13,541 individual victims. I have an outstanding victim witness unit. They have received numerous awards. Just this year, we were presented with the Marcy Laws Champion Award right here in front of this board. It was because of the work of the people that you saw standing earlier. For several years, we've partnered with Kennesaw State University's Department of Social Work to provide no-cost counseling for eligible victims. We have provided youth visa applications for victims. We have done so much work in this world to provide a safe place for our victims in our community. The Cobb General Fund was used to, through the Cobb General Fund, combined with monies collected via the 5% local victim assistance add-on fee, we funded 11 victim advocate positions, three court supervisor positions, and a director position, and one special assistant to the district attorney position, and one judicial admin tech. A combination of these grants provides funding for an additional 15 advocate-related positions. The largest grant funding source is our vocal funding. September 22nd, we were notified that our vocal funding would be cut from $1.2 million all the way to $130,000. In anticipation of these cuts, we started seeking alternate funding. But as we know, the legislature was not in session, so we were not able to talk to them to get special funding from them. The impact that this will have on our victim advocate staff. As I told you, the number of services we provided, cutting our staff in half will cost us to really limit our services to what we can do. And as a result, not providing the services that the people of Cobb County deserve. The services that help them feel safe, that help them get through the criminal justice system, to make them whole and not let crime continue to victimize them because of something that's happened to them one time. I've got letters of support here from different individuals, and there's two I'd like to definitely read. One is from Judge Brendan Murphy. It says, "Greetings. On behalf of the Magistrate Court of Cobb County, I write to express public thanks to the Victim Witness Assistant Unit of the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. The hardworking, caring, knowledgeable, and resourceful women and men of the unit provide professional support and notification services to alleged victims of crime as cases move through the justice system. I see their dedication firsthand in the courtroom during the dozens of commitment, bond, and plea hearings scheduled in the Magistrate Court each week. In order for both of the accused and the victim to have their timely day in court, I'm proud that our Magistrate Court's clerk's office calendars hearings extremely quickly. However, fair and impartial courts do not have a mechanism to notify victims of court dates nor provide them any pre-hearing opportunity for information and input. Where well-trained victim advocates were not available through the District Attorney's Office to provide this support, constitutionally prohibited unreasonable delays in proceedings would be an immediate result. Further, fulfilling the other requirements of the constitutionally protected Georgia Crime Victims Bill of Rights would be in serious jeopardy, negatively impacting the dignity of victims and safety of the entire community. Please do not hesitate to contact, as he goes on to give his contact information. The next letter is from the Kennesaw State University, Dr. Tanya Smith. It says, Dear Board of Commissioners, this letter is to convey my unequivocal support of the Victim Witness Unit of the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. This program is an indispensable resource for persons who have undergone traumatic experiences and require assistance, direction, and empowerment while navigating the criminal justice system. The efforts of the Cobb DA's Office Victim Witness Advocates are genuinely admirable, as they labor ceaselessly to guarantee that victims are provided with essential resources and services that facilitate their recovery. The Cobb's DA's Office Victim Witness Unit Advocate is an essential component of the criminal justice system. Without victim witness advocates, the criminal justice system would lack an essential component in its mission to provide justice and support to those impacted by crime. Advocating for the rights and needs of victims and witnesses is a crucial aspect of an advocate's role. They work closely with individuals to ensure that their voices are heard and their rights are protected. This may involve assisting with the preparation of a victim impact statement, helping victims access resources and support services, advocating for the needs within the criminal justice system. Advocates also play a vital role in promoting victim-centered approaches, working to create a system that is sensitive to the unique experience and challenges faced by victims and witnesses. Through their tireless advocacy efforts, they strive to create a more just and compassionate society for all. As a resident of Cobb County and as a person who works within the Cobb Judicial Circuit, it is my belief that the Cobb DA's Office Victim Witness Unit Advocates position should be integrated into the Victim Witness General Budget. By incorporating these positions into the budget, we can further enhance their viability and extend their assistance to a greater number of individuals. This program's significance should not be underestimated, as it not only offers immediate assistance to victims, but also promotes education and awareness while addressing the underlying causes of trauma to prevent further distress. Investing in this unit will cultivate a safer and more supportive environment for the entire community, which will benefit not only the victims, but also the community at large. Through the establishment of the Cobb County DA's Office Victim Witness Advocate as a permanent position in the budget, the Cobb County Commissioners communicates that Cobb County places great emphasis on providing assistance and empowerment to trauma survivors. I wanted to read those letters to highlight the importance of what we do. The victim advocates are a critical part of that. Their role in providing services to our victims helps us through the criminal justice system. Too many times we're told that the system doesn't work. Well, the people that they address that to is that victim advocate. They're the ones who console, they're the ones who give them the resources, get them everything that they need to become whole. And without them, our role as prosecutors is unattainable, because we're here to provide public safety. We're here to protect and make our victims whole. And without our victim advocates, we can't do that. Is this a priority to us? Yes. Throughout all our budget discussions with the board, our number one focus has been moving our victim advocates to the general fund. My very first year here, we moved 6 of them to the general fund because we anticipated that this might happen one day. We were told that it might happen this year, but then we were told that the money would be found. And we were told on September 22nd that the money wasn't there. So we didn't have an opportunity to find a way to make it work. And that's why we're coming to you today. We've talked to each and every one of you prior to this. We came up with some solutions. We waited to see if those solutions would come forward, and they did. And so now we're here before you to ask to move these positions to the general fund, not only to secure the work that we do, but also to make whole my victim advocates who sit in anticipation that one day they may have to leave a job that they love. And I say that because when we first found that we may face these cuts, we gave a shout out to all the individuals that would be affected. And we gave them an opportunity to prepare themselves, to look for another job, to find something else to do, so that this would not come as a big shock. But not a single one of them left. Not a single one of them wanted to go do something else because they care about what they do. They care about this community. They care about their victims. They understand the role that they play in the criminal justice system and how important it is to help our victims be whole. I love the people that work in our office, and I know they love the work that they do for this community. And we're focused on public safety and making everybody safe. Give us this opportunity to continue the work that we're doing. This is not a new program. This is not a new position or anything like that. This is an opportunity for us to continue to provide the services for our citizens that we have provided for so long, and to continue to make our victims whole so they can continue to thrive in our community. I will take any questions if you have any questions at this time.
Thank you, DA. What I will do is make a motion for our board to have discussion unless anybody has any questions directly for our DA. Okay, thank you.
This is a state mandated program, and question was asked about you approaching the state for the funding. I know I asked you for emails or confirmation that you did that, and I did not receive that from you. So how do we know that you did truly approach the state for funding? Because it's my understanding the state received additional funding for programs such as these.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. I find it very interesting that when I asked you to prove to me that you had reached out to the state in regards to the funding for this, no documentation was received from your office to mine. When I approached the state through our legislators, according to them, they were given, the department that you get this funding from was given additional funds. So I'm having a hard time understanding why, if the state provided additional funds for these programs, why Cobb County was not eligible for those funds, given this is a state mandated program.
First of all, I know I come to you with a lot of different things, and so you're getting two different things mixed up. The funding that was additionally added to the state was for the Child Support Division through the Department of Health Services, not through the VOCA grant, which is a federal fund. So there was no additional money given to the state through VOCA to be able to give to us for our victim advocates. The money that you're talking about was the money that was given to child support to help child support meet their budget needs.
But again, this is a state mandated program. So are you functioning with a bigger program than what the state mandates? Why isn't the state funding this?
The Georgia Crime Victim Bill of Rights is a state mandated program that we have to fulfill. But the people that we are fulfilling this program for are citizens of Cobb County. So despite the fact that the state has used federal funds to fund this program, it is still our responsibility to address the needs of our citizens. Just like you, I'm sworn to protect the citizens of this county. And despite not having federal funds, because the VOCA money has been reduced in the recent years, I still have a job to do. You still have a job to do. And that is to make sure that our citizens are made whole when they are victims of crime. Now, I can read to you what the Victim Bill of Rights says, so you know exactly what we do. But this has been in place since 2002 that we've had to do this.
I have more comments, but not questions for the DA.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Richardson.
I was just going to second. I'm waiting on a motion.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions for our DA directly before we have a motion? Because once we make the motion, he will not be engaging with the board.
DA, just a question for clarification. The agenda item indicates that it will be an increase of $660, but you were awarded $130. So if we roll this into the general budget, would the $130 be included in the $660 to increase that amount?
No, the $130 is the amount that we were awarded for the grant, and it funded us all the way through November 23rd.
Okay.
So I believe it's 680, it might not be. Is it 660 or 680?
680, excuse me.
680. The 680 is what we need to carry us throughout the rest of the year. So the total ask for next year would be 810.
Okay, that's what I needed clarification on. Thank you.
Repeat that number for next year. You said it would be 810?
810,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are there any questions or comments remaining for RDA? Thank you, DA Brody. Commissioners, I move that we approve this agenda item as it has been presented.
Second. And
is there any discussion?
Just one comment. Certainly when it comes to mandated, we're finding this pretty frequently occurring now with mandated needs or services, and they're not necessarily funded, and we're seeing a shortfall, and we're having to figure out how to close that shortfall year over year. And I just think strategically, I know the Sheriff's Office is also encountering this, Judge Wolk's office is encountering this in different capacities. I think there's an opportunity for us to look at this strategically, what that shortfall is, maybe identify a projected amount, and see where we can increase our advocacy across all of those different agencies and departments and the courts. And so that's just my general commentary. Obviously, this never feels good, but this is now a recurring, not you recurring, but recurring across all those different groups, and I would like to see that. I would like to see us get our hands around that more effectively, because this is not the most effective approach.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other comments? Commissioner Gambrill?
I do see this as reoccurring because this is the second time since the budget was approved that the DA's office has been come back to ask for additional funding for his department. And as Commissioner Richardson said, probate, I know I've been in office, this is my 5th year, and I've had the same discussion with probate 5 years in a row now. So if we go back to Judge Murphy, I believe is the one that you said, fair and impartial courts, where is the fair and impartiality to ensuring that Judge Wolk can perform the duties that she needs to do within the probate? Because after all, it's my understanding if somebody has a mental health issue, it actually starts with going to probate to get the help that they need. But yet we continue to leave her understaffed. She is not serving the public in a means that she needs to do that, and she has continually come to the board for the last 5 years asking for that. So that transitions into my next statement of, again, this agenda item is going against board policy in approving. We're approving employees and we're using essentially fund balance, but my bigger issue is that we are using insurance premium taxes to do so. Every single homeowner in Cobb County pays insurance, and we have to protect our homes and to protect our own investments. Yet the county is getting a portion of that back as revenue. Our insurance premiums are going up. The county had a windfall of more than what they expected because our insurance premiums went up, and now we're using this excess fundage to support the DA. Why weren't other departments that we know have needed personnel to do the jobs that they need to do considered? Where's the equity in that? Why is it always the DA? And again, this is the second time the DA has come back asking for positions and funding outside of his budget. Where is that given to our other departments that need support, funding to do their jobs? So there's more than one reason why I vote no for the budget, and this is another one, even though this is not a budget discussion. I also take issue with the state, and while this is not something the board can address, we brought up a way to generate revenue to help support some of the state mandated programs that the state is putting on us, and they pretty much pushed back and said, no way. And yes, those were speed cameras, but they were not speed cameras that were going to be fixed. They were going to be cameras that were essentially portable to act like speed traps that our police are unable to do because of our staffing, which would have then, yes, been able to generate revenue that would have maybe been able to fund these things. But the state pushed back on us because, oh, it was a way to collect revenue. Yet here the state is allowing the county collect revenue off of homeowner insurance premiums, which again is an unfair burden cost on the homeowners that the county benefits. So yes, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. It might not necessarily be attainable to this agenda item, but the fact is we are using funds that are against our policy to support positions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sheffield.
Thank you. Thank you, DA, for all of the work that you've done for us and what you continue to do in presenting this agenda item, sharing letters of support from your colleagues, your staff, and so many others. As it's already been stated, there's been requests from other departments, and obviously there becomes an issue of equity in who you decide to fund for additional personnel, et cetera. But I think that with the Board of Commissioners, obviously, we have the flexibility to make these decisions, and that's part of the reason we are here. It's never an easy decision. We look at everything. We analyze everything, the request, et cetera. In your particular situation, some things are just beyond your control, and it's been stated that you've come before us numerous times in the past for budget requests. Part of what you do relies on federal funds to which we have no control over whether or not those funds are going to be granted. However, we do have a responsibility to protect the residents of Cobb County. And what you do in this agenda item, it undergirds public safety. And by all accounts, we have been very supportive of our public safety for the citizens of Cobb County. I don't see where this is any different. While again, it is difficult because these items should be presented at budget, but again, it's beyond your control. So what do we say to the victims of the families that are represented here today? Some are still on death row from crimes committed decades ago.
Agree.
What do you tell the domestic violence person who's fearful of her life or the lives of her children? It comes a point where we may have to make decisions not based on popularity, but based on need. And for me, I am supportive of this agenda item because, again, it does undergird the public safety of Cobb residents. And I tip my hat to you. You have done a fantastic job since you've been in office, and I appreciate everything that you've done.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Your heart is in the right place. Your actions are in the right place, and you have a genuine care and concern for the residents of Cobb County, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sheffield, for bringing this into what I believe is helpful and healthy perspective. Everything that all of the commissioners said is true. It's true what Commissioner Richardson shared about unfunded mandates, but it's also true what Commissioner Gambrill said. These are not a new thing. We've always had unfunded mandates that extend beyond what we budget and we consider something in the interim, and we have to respond accordingly when we set the next year's budget. We wish we had a crystal ball from when we knew there would be an impact to the decisions we made around our budget, but we live in an imperfect world because we live in the real world. And things happen, as Commissioner Sheffield shared, that are not in our control. But Commissioner Gamble is right. We're using one-time monies to fund something that's an ongoing expense. And so it does violate our financing principles. That's why you're here today. And these things we consider on a case-by-case basis. And I think Commissioner Sheffield clearly made the case as to why this is being considered, because of the exigence of the matter. When we have families that have been impacted by crime and would have no one to help shepherd them through the process but for this program. And if any one of us have been a victim, particularly of a violent crime, we would not be able to comprehend the level of need and assistance that is needed during that time. It's important to have you here as an advocate to be able to express that. And you've done a good job as far as having people reach out to us to help us understand that. So while I understand we have processes in place as to how we govern, our processes are put in place because we want to make good policy to help people. We're here to serve people. And so that's what I would ask for us to be mindful of. But the reality is, while we can do what is good for people today, when we make our next budget, we will need to look for the funds to cover this expense. And because we have limited funds, it often feels like a zero-sum game, as what Commissioner Gamble said. Why the DA? Why not probate? Because the probate's office works with people who have lost a loved one, who are looking for help, and nobody ever wants to be in that situation and not be properly served. But we are the Board of Commissioners. We're asking the question to the public. We need to ask ourselves, what will we do about making sure we're meeting the needs that we know are important to our citizens? So while I know these are tough questions, we're elected to be able to respond to those tough questions. And so this is really a conversation for us. We can pose it to you, but it's for no one else to tell us why the DA or probate. It is for us to determine why not the DA and probate. Why not us help our citizens where they all have need? Perhaps we consider doing some other things in our budget to make sure that they still are recurring needs, because it's not as if we just have a giant pool of money of which to always pull from. But this is the tough work of why we're here. And so I appreciate the conversation. I feel like you've done your part as far as letting us know what the need is. And I look forward to supporting this, but just again remind the commissioners, we will have to find $810,000 next year. And as Commissioner Gamble said, this is not going to be the only ask before us. And so I ask for those who are sensitive to what we're doing today to be supportive of us when we have to make the correlating decisions when we set the budget next year to make sure that the program continues. So with that, Commissioners, I moved already that we approve the agenda item as it has been presented. Commissioner Richardson did second it, and I'm going to go ahead and call the question. The motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Gamble in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We are now moving on to our DOT regular agenda.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager.
Drew, I'm sorry. Why don't we go ahead and just wait a minute so we can let some people step out without you being interrupted. Ma'am, I'm sorry. It's not appropriate. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you to those who are here who have dealt with the death of a loved one. I'm sorry for not making that remark. I can only imagine your grief. Okay, Drew, thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Drew Russell with DOT, 10 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve Amendment Number 1 to the Cobb Framework Agreement with the City of Powder Springs for Powder Springs, Marietta Street Traffic Signal System Preservation, project numbers B2553 and 2557. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Sheffield. So moved. Second. Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Williams Power and Signal, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $409,014.87 for Powder Springs, Marietta Street at New Macklin Road Traffic Signal Upgrade, project number B2557. Authorize the corresponding budget transaction and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Sheffield. So moved. Second. Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0. Okay.
Thank you. Our next item is revised to recognize the correct district, and it is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve an intergovernmental agreement with Cobb County Board of Education for the conveyance of a temporary construction easement on a tract of land identified as tax parcel number 19013100020 for Castile Road at Still Elementary School, project number B2803. Authorize the acceptance of the conveyance of the required easements for said project, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Gambrill.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve an intergovernmental agreement for maintenance with the Georgia Department of Transportation regarding a mass arm improvement for Acres Mill Road Managed Lanes access, Cobb County project number X2410, and authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Richardson.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve a memorandum of agreement with Cobb County Marietta Water Authority in an amount not to exceed $2,645,216.89 for resurfacing of Cobb County Marietta Water Authority project number B2951. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Gambrill.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with D&H Construction Company Incorporated, a savings to the project in the amount of $42,868.13 for drainage system repairs on Lake Ridge Drive, project number B2234. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Richardson.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to project number B2288 to the 2021 countywide unit price contract with Chatfield Contracting Incorporated, a savings to the project in the amount of $40,074.49 for emergency drainage repairs on Rivendell Court. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to project number B2289 to the 2021 countywide unit price contract with Advanced Sports Construction, LLC, a savings to the project in the amount of $73,890.24 for emergency drainage repairs on Shiloh Drive, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Sheffield.
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 2 final to the contract with Glosson Enterprises, LLC, a savings to the project in the amount of $54,105.43 for Shaw Road Sidewalk Project number X2751. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And our final item this morning is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve 2024 countywide unit price contracts with 18 bidders for countywide construction and maintenance services and authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
We are now at our second public comment.
Yes, Chairwoman, and the first speaker is Christy Miner.
And I don't have time. It's going to be tight. Okay, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Christy Miner. I'm here to speak in response to the mental health resolution that you passed on October 10th and your legislative agenda for 2024, endorsing House Bill 520. These organizations have deceived you. During their propaganda at Blitzkrieg, they hoodwinked county commissioners, the public, and sheriffs across the state. The Marietta Daily Journal quoted Sheriff Owens in September stating, "I'm not a mental health professional. People seem to think I am. Jail is not a place where mental health patients need to be." To this, we can all agree. I know this was also a problem in Penobscot County, Maine, where I lived up until 2020. State Representative Sharon Cooper has been right in the thick of HB 520 push. What she's failed to disclose is that as chairwoman of the House Public Health Committee, she blackballed the Georgia Sheriff's Association, refusing to consider their proposed amendment. Rather, she insisted that the bill be rammed through to the House floor, where it passed and now languishes in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. I introduced myself to Sheriff Owens, stating I've been around public policy a while and I've learned one thing, that you need to be careful not to adopt something that's going to make things worse. He agreed to look at page 19 of this 44-page bill with me. I showed him the section on involuntary treatment, pointing to 2 people need to attest that the person being taken into custody is an alcoholic or is drug dependent. After the shock wore off, he stated, quote, "I agree with you that this will create a backlog in my jails," close quote. I shared with Chief of Police Van Hooser my experience working with caregivers of people with dementia in the state of Maine for 15 years and how they had to prove a family member was an immediate threat of safety to themselves or others before they could place them in involuntary treatment. He educated me that it has always been pretty easy to get a 1013 in Georgia, in his opinion. So I looked up the Georgia code, and sure enough, it already states that 2 people must present affidavits, but the language is proposed to change from mental illness to a person that is believed to be an alcoholic, drug-dependent individual, a drug abuser, requiring involuntary treatment. There are more concerns with this bill. Many people have expressed alarm over the immunity from liability language, but Chairwoman Cooper would rather demonize her fellow Republicans as conspiracy theorists than actually respond to concerns. Or we are provided this 4-page handout disputing our concerns. Not only is there no record of who authored this, there are no citations, and I am more confused every time I try to read it. My Bible tells me that God is not the author of confusion, so all I do know for a fact is that this garbage is not made of righteousness. There is reason to be concerned. We only have to look to examples in our own history, not even 100 years ago, with cases such as Carrie Buck. I've been extremely impressed that at least my concerns are being shared. Chairwoman Cupid forwarded my email to Chief Judge Kelly Walk of the Probate Court, and DA Brody forwarded my email to Representative Terry Cummings. Both women responded indicating that the National Alliance on Mental Illness was an organization that they looked to for guidance. I have no doubt that NAMI does great work, but I was curious about their stance on civil liberties. It doesn't appear to be a core mission. On page 11, there is also a strange reference to expand forensic peer monitors for the purpose of pre-arrest diversion and to ameliorate homelessness. I found no definition of forensic peer monitor in the 44-page document. I wish to speak to the families that are struggling in the chaos of supporting someone with addiction or mental illness. If you've been told that the state and county don't have systems in place to help you, you have also been lied to. Of course, there's always opportunity for improvement. There is no mention of needing HB 520 by any of the providers that I heard speaking at the Cobb County Behavioral Health Coordination meeting, which was very well done and sponsored by Chairwoman Cupid. Also, I've heard numerous praises about the PATH program from law enforcement providers and families. It's my sincere prayer that families recognize the savior is not Georgia state bureaucracies, big pharma, or a police state. Bob Schwartz here in Atlanta has created an organization to educate, not medicate. He shares a powerful testimony regarding how even brief use of prescribed psychotropic, mind-altering medications cost him almost everything. Where's my, oh, there it is. So while HB 520 may seem appealing for the efficiency with which we could force a public nuisance or even a prodigal child into treatment, will it be effective? What happens when the person resists? Are they criminally charged? Are they held down and forced to take medications? Cobb County must rescind its support of HB 520. The public must contact our state senators now and tell them to kill HB 520. Our family members are not livestock. Thank you very much.
The next public speaker is Zahir Zayed.
Good morning. Lost track of time. I'm Zakir Syed, Cobb County resident. I want to just take a moment to express my gratitude to the board for removing the original resolution that was brought in last month. Thank you. And Chairwoman Cupid, what you shared today is very inclusive, and I echo the message you had. I think what matters is our local affairs. We have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing all the community together. Be mindful of our safety and security and how we can learn from each other and be an inclusive society. Now, that doesn't necessarily solve what's happening in the catastrophe that's currently happening in the Middle East. Over 11,000 Palestinians have been killed. Still 200 plus hostages haven't been found or recovered. Pretty much as of yesterday, all hospitals are not functioning. I heard in the news, NPR, they talked about babies, newborn babies being abandoned in the ICU because there is no electricity, there is no oxygen, there is no water or basic cleaning, medical supplies. Just think for a moment, newborn babies had to be left behind. Some nurses were sniped, were killed by snipers. We heard about this whole Hamas, taking shelter under the hospital, et cetera. That still doesn't justify bombing hospitals. Okay, that's still considered war crime, not because of me. That's the definition of war crime. And it's all done by our ally, Israel. And we continue to, as a country, keep supporting and now debating about sending another $15 billion package so they can continue their genocide. It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, nobody here gonna argue with me if I say 2 + 2 is something other than 4, right? It's 4. So just think about the perspective. Gaza Strip, which is about 140 square miles, coincidentally same size as Atlanta City, not the whole metro area. We have 500,000 people in Atlanta City. This one has more than 2 million people, extremely dense. So far in 4 weeks, they dropped like 600 bombs in that small area. America also dropped 600 bombs in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the size of Texas, and they dropped those bombs over a year period. We're not proud about it as Americans. 200,000 people got killed, mostly civilians. And we're seeing the same thing happen in a much, much worse, in a much more denser setting, and we're allowing it. It just doesn't make sense, right? You know, we started this meeting with the prayers. Why? Because we are mostly a faith-based. We have a strong faith. You know, we are Southerns, humble people, God-fearing, God-loving people. And one day we're going to go meet our makers. You know, think about what you're going to answer when this question comes. Where did you stood by? When we had the power to make a difference, and you know, what type of action did we took? How did we speak against what's happening? You don't have to listen to me what I'm saying. You can do your own research and see what's going on. And I'll have a small, humble request. Please take a 5-10 minutes to go look up, Google it up, Breaking the Silence. It's an Israeli advocacy group led by veteran soldiers who served Israeli military. They have documented last 35 years of atrocities committed in the occupied land. It's crazy, the stuff, you know, what they have witnessed, and it's still happening, and we're just letting it keep on going. It goes against all the values and principles as a country we stand for, and we must take a stand and be right side of the history. Thank you.
The next speaker is Donald Barth.
Good morning, ladies. And I always use that as a term of endearment, not to talk down. So I'm here this morning. The first thing I want to tell you is something great, something really good. I had to call 911 Friday night. There was an incident out in front of my house, strange cars, very strange, parked in a strange manner and in a dark dead end in my neighborhood who is having a rash of door where they pop your door and see if it's unlocked. I called 911. Everybody else won't call in my neighborhood. Oh, hell no, we're not calling them. You know, the guy I got was a perfect call taker. I got the best of the best. One hand, I got a cell phone. In my other hand, I got a Second Amendment. I got 15 chances to get out of whatever happens that night. I didn't need it. Mr. Call Taker kept me from doing anything rash. I was able to implore upon the gentleman that they probably didn't want to be there right now. Police were on their way. And the situation diffused. The perfect scenario. No cars got broke into that night on that level. Nobody got shot. Perfect. So I want to thank that call taker. That's cool because Marietta has to use the 911 center. I want to address a quick house cleaning issue tonight. What's wrong with y'all? Why won't you post the rules right over there? Mr. Bill had to be the enforcer today. I can't tell you how many people weren't in that line this morning but spoke. And they don't know better. And some of them took a little bit of problematic. It looks like we're picking on them maybe for their religion or race because you jump, oh no. Well, yeah, they got to do it. Post the rules. Is it a problem? Are y'all scared? Okay, now let's roll down the road. Speaking of rules, ladies, you're on a dais speaking on governance. Who asked any one of you what the hell you thought over in the rest of the world? Who asked you? What does it have to do with Cobb County? I have yet to hear you apologize for stepping on other people's toes. You are here to do Cobb County business. I've listened to everybody tonight talk about a bunch of stuff. It's not Cobb County related. Isn't that in the rules? We need to get back. I want y'all to publicly apologize to everybody whose feelings are hurt. I don't care where they came from. I want you to apologize. I want a censor put on somebody that spoke. That's not your position. That they asked this to take care of Cobb County business only. You got a personal opinion, you take it home. You crack a bottle of wine, you take a stiff drink, whatever it is you do it on your own time. When you're representing me or any other citizen of Cobb County, you stick to what you're supposed to do. Please do not ever throw a match in a 55-gallon drum of gas and wonder what the hell's going to happen. By now, you ought to know. It's obvious, but you did it. You threw the match. Now, how are we going to put the flame out? How are we going to apologize to all the people that should have been offended? You didn't have the business, whether it was you or one of you. That's where censorship, sanctions, whatever it is. You go off the reservation, back to that, I always use it, whether it's right or wrong, but when you start stepping on people's toes and it's not county-related business, that's not what you got voted up there for. Please fix this situation, invite our newfound friends back in, explain what the rules are. It's simple. If they know what the rules are, I won't have a doctor coming in and telling me, I'm a doctor, so I got my time. I don't give a damn. I really don't give a damn. Y'all know I'll tell you. So anyway, let's fix the problem we got right now. There's nothing else to bitch about. That's a big problem. Thank you.
Christine Rosman.
That's a real hard act to follow. But he makes some really good points, and I do agree that, you know, we have to stay in our lane, as they say, and we're having a hard enough time figuring out what the heck's going on in Cobb County, let alone across the world, even what's happening in other counties. I was hoping to be here in time to speak before the consent agenda items, so I don't have such a prepared speech, but I would like to also talk about the DA's office. And I find it like, so we're paying the salaries of everybody, of course, but I was like, is that like the entire DA's office was here? I mean, that's kind of weird for me. I mean, that might be how government works, where you know, I mean, it's like, that's cute about the teamwork and stuff, but is it appropriate to take a couple of hours out of somebody so that then they're, what are they doing, overtime? So we paid for them to attend this. There's a couple of things about that have me concerned, and that is what you brought up, Commissioner Gambrell, about what, you know, where are the boundaries with this? If we have to say to Judge Walk in probate, no, you can't have more people, but then the DA's office does get them, who is it the bleeding heart? Like, who has a better case of who gets the money? Or do you have boundaries on it? Do you have boundaries on things? I mean, boundaries are not a bad thing. Boundaries in relationships are not a bad thing, because otherwise, if you don't have boundaries, you have nothing. There was such a push on this bleeding heart of, and I understand, I know that there are victims. Believe me, I understand that part. But I also understand that we have some police and law enforcement that do a hell of a good job. And they get the bad guys. And then what happens? They end up like being catch and release. And they get back onto our streets. And then there are more victims of what happens because they are criminals. So why don't we, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Why don't we give more, empower more to our police and what they're doing and the follow through with that, so that we're putting the bad guys behind bars instead of letting them go. You know, in that Cobb 101, I learned that, and from reading the MDJ, thank you, is that there is, you know, our jail has a whole bunch of, like, hundreds of people from Fulton County because we're their overflow. So is that why we're not putting these people in jail, so we can accommodate Fulton County? I don't know. I don't know why, what the disconnect is. But I don't feel as safe in Cobb County as I used to because our police aren't able, I mean, they're doing their job, but then it gets, the ball gets dropped. Another thing, just quick, because I have a minute left, is we're trying to keep our Board of Commissioners accountable. We're trying to keep the spending accountable. We have something that I'd love your feedback on it because I'm not sure what to do with it. I go to the Board of Elections meeting too because I'm really a big advocate for having fair elections, having ethical elections, integrity with our elections. And so there's a board there. We don't elect them. They're assigned. They won't even say the Pledge of Allegiance. So what is their allegiance to? Whoever put them on the board? I don't know. But it's getting really uncomfortable because, you know, people that even consider questioning an election
Ms. Rosman, your time is up.
end up in jail. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sarah Quazali.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Qureshi. I first want to thank all of you, dear commissioners, for tabling the resolution. This is an amazing example of the beauty of the democratic process. Since the last meeting, I've had the pleasure of meeting Commissioners Richardson, Gambrill, and Burrell, as well as Chairwoman Cupid, and I hope to still have a chance to meet with you, Commissioner Sheffield. My hope was that by meeting in smaller groups, we would be able to agree on our shared humanity. You already heard what we had to say about the humanitarian crisis in Palestine, and while listening to the brave Native American speaker today about what happened to the Etowah, that sounded so much like what is happening to the Palestinians currently. I hope one day we are telling Palestinian stories the way that we are sharing the Native American ones, since their plights are so similar. I will share some words from community member Gada al-Najjar, Palestinian American daughter of Palestinian refugees with blood relatives in Gaza, and I quote, "My family lives in Gaza. Many members of my relatives were killed in the bombings. Some of their bodies continue to be under the rubble, and the ones living, many of them have lost their homes. Every day we pray for their safety, not knowing when and where the next bomb will drop." One of the speakers before me said that our existence is anti-Semitic. What he didn't say is that we are Semitic. Let's not conflate criticism of Israel and its war crimes with Jewish hate. It's not the same. And yes, the crisis in Gaza didn't begin on October 7th. Gaza has been under brutal Israeli military siege for 16 years, and Palestine has been under occupation and settler colonialism since 1948, which is why there is no two-state solution. To answer the speaker from Hadassah, from the river to the sea is on the right-wing Likud platform, the leading ruling political party of which Benjamin Netanyahu is the prime minister. What is happening in Gaza and the West Bank is ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the river to the sea by the state of Israel. To further address the speaker representing Hadassah, the problem with the previous resolution introduced and why it didn't pass is because it was one-sided in its condemnation and one-sided in its support, ignoring the violence and suffering inflicted by Israel on the Palestinian people and not acknowledging the pain felt by the Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim American communities here, ignoring us as constituents, as residents, as taxpayers, and as essential to the fabric of our country. I thank the Board of Commissioners for tabling the resolution." End quote. Now, maybe we won't be able to change each other's minds about what is happening abroad, but I do know this. We all bleed the same color, and we should thus mourn for every one of our fellow human beings equally, whether they are Israeli, Palestinian, or any other ethnic background. I want to reiterate that I am here to assist you with whatever you may need, and I'm happy to share further resources about what is happening in Palestine with you, as well as collaborate on any other Cobb County initiatives. Thank you so much, and for anyone who is listening, let's all pressure our elected officials and call for a ceasefire now. Thank you.
The next speaker is Rosalie Agro. What's your? That's final speaker.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. We are now at our appointment tab. And the first one is by Commissioner Gambrill.
I'd like to announce the reappointment of Jeff Wood to the Neighborhood Safety Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the second one is for the Board of Health. I move that we reappoint Dr. Paula Graves and Pete Canonis to the Board of Health.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. Missing one. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Commissioners. That takes us to our Commissioner's Public Address. Commissioner Gamble, you can begin when you're ready.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 5408 have teamed up with Sweetwater Mission yet again to conduct this larger effort around the holiday season. Their goal is to help over 500 families this year with a drive-through pantry, which will be open on Saturday, November 17th from 11 to 2 p.m. November 18th from 11 to 2 p.m. at 4764 Cobb Parkway Northwest in Ackworth. The Yuletide season is fast approaching. You can load up your sleigh and head over to Shadrack's Christmas Wonderland, Cobb County's new and first drive-through light show, which will open on November 17th and run through January 7th at the Jim R. Miller Park in Marietta. You can take a magical journey through a mesmerizing light display, synced to holiday music you can hear on your car radio. It features a kaleidoscope tunnel, 50-foot sparkling Christmas trees, towering lights, toy-making elves, reindeer flight school, and Mr. and Mrs. Claus at the North Pole. For more information and tickets, you can click on the QR code. And lastly, our Cobb County residents are very fortunate to have two gentlemen who are instrumental in forming our Cobb Parks Department and Recreation programs. They were inducted into the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association Hall of Fame this past week. Current Deputy County Manager Jimmy Giese and former Cobb Parks Director Eddie Cannon were honored at this annual meeting. To qualify for such a recognition, an individual must have made an unusual and extraordinary contributions to the recreations, parks, or conservation movement in Georgia. Congratulations to Eddie and Jimmy for this well-deserved recognition.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll go on to Commissioner Richardson.
Certainly well done, Jimmy. All right, District 2. So happy Thanksgiving. It's coming up Thursday, November 23rd, as we gather to be thankful for what we have, for the family we love, the friends we cherish, and for the blessings that are to come. And certainly in the moments where we feel the most fearful, when we feel the most alone, there is certainly an opportunity to find something to be grateful for, because in all moments there is something to consider, if there's to cherish and try to find that hope internally. Next up, D2 Quarterly Report. Mark your calendars for the 2023 District 2 End of the Year Report. This is an opportunity to learn about what's going on in District 2 and the District 2 community and the county. In addition to the report, we'll have guest speakers and awards for the active leaders in the community. The event will be held November 16th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Scouts of America Atlanta Area Council, and this is near the Battery. If you're wondering, it's across the street. Please scan the QR code if you are interested in attending. It really is an opportunity to find ways to be involved, and it is a part of our quarterly report series that we do annually. Next up is the D2 Holiday Food Drive. Our office is partnering with the Center of Family Resources to host a food drive to help families in need during the holiday season. Locations for drop-off include Sewell Mill Library, Vinings Library, East Cobb Library, and donations will be collected from November 15th through December 22nd. There will also be a donation collection box at our end of the year report on November 16th. All donations will go to the Center of Family Resources, and for questions, please contact Megan. D2 Board Appointment Applications. Are you interested in being involved in Cobb County government? We are now accepting applications for the boards and authorities that we appoint to. Cobb County Board of Commissioners is assisted by several advisory commissions, boards, and committees, and these groups are comprised of county residents and report directly to either the BOC or to individual county departments. If you're interested in serving on one of the boards, please visit d2cobb.com/appointees or email Megan for more information. From the community. Next up. From the community, MSPLOS Forum, new mobility special purpose SPLOS taxes being planned for inclusion on the November 2024 ballot. The MSPLOS would dedicate funding that provides enhanced mobility options, connectivity to jobs and housing choices, lower transportation costs for households, innovative solutions for safe and efficient travel, and support for a thriving future for Cobb County. Cobb staff will be available at the following locations and times to provide information and answer your questions about the Mobility SPLOS. There is one that was yesterday. There's one tomorrow, November 15th, from 5 to 7 at the Ben Robertson Community Center in Kennesaw, and one Thursday evening, 5 to 7 at the Smyrna Community Center. And Holiday Cheer comes to Cobb. Gather the family for an amazing holiday display starting this weekend at Shadrack's Christmas Wonderland. Cobb County's new drive-through light show open November 17th through January 7th at Jim R. Miller Park in Marietta. Take a magical journey through a mesmerizing light display synced to holiday music that you can hear on your car radio. Features a kaleidoscope tunnel, 50-foot sparkling Christmas trees, towering lights, toy-making elves, reindeer flight school, and Mr. and Mrs. Claus at the North Pole. The park is located at 2245 Callaway Road, Marietta. Fall Prevention for Senior Wellness. The East Cobb Library is pleased to partner with PT Solutions Physical Therapy located in the Park Air Landing Plaza. A physical therapist will teach participants balance and strengthening exercises. All adults ages 18 and older are welcome to attend. That concludes all of my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll now go on to Commissioner Sheffield.
District 4 news and updates. Enjoy an energetic, fun time filled with stories, crafts, movement, and social time for children up to age 6. Story times are a great way for children to build literacy skills and interact with others in a safe and fun setting. No child is too young to benefit. Story time will take place at the South Cobb Recreational Center located at 875 Riverside Parkway in Austell on Tuesdays and Thursdays through December 14th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The event is free, but you must register at cobbparks.org. Join Cobb County Sheriff Craig Owens for a community briefing on Wednesday, November 15th. The sheriff will provide important public safety updates and other information that you do not want to miss. The meeting will take place at South Cobb High School, located at 1920 Clay Road in Austell. The program starts at 6 and doors open at 5:30. Refreshments will be served. The Powder Springs Community Task Force is currently accepting donations of new and unwrapped gifts, items for children in the community for its 9th annual Giving Hope for the Holidays toy drive. Donations will be accepted through Saturday, December 16th. For additional information, contact Deborah Douglin at 678-522-1314. And in collaboration with the Empty Stocking Fund, the Powder Springs Community Task Force will distribute the donated toys on Saturday, December 17th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Ron Anderson Recreation Center located at 3820 Macedonia Road in Powder Springs. To register for gifts, visit emptystockingfund.org/parents. November's In the Zone community meeting will be held on the 5th Wednesday of this month on November 29th, and not on our regularly scheduled 4th Wednesday, which is Thanksgiving Eve. Our monthly meetings are virtual and a great way to learn about upcoming zoning cases in District 4. Meeting details will be shared in next week's newsletter. And then finally, congratulations to Deputy County Manager Jimmy Giese for being inducted into the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association Hall of Fame. Both Giese and former Cobb Parks Director Eddie Cannon, both pictured here, were jointly inducted into the GRPA Hall of Fame. Each man helped shape the legacy and look of Cobb County's park and recreation centers. The award recognizes individuals or organizations who have made unusual or extraordinary contributions to the parks or conservation movement in Georgia. The recognition is well-deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to everyone who's here today, who's tuned in, and who's helped to support us in preparing for today's agenda, our staff, and certainly our Board of Commissioners for all the work that you do in assessing the decisions that we're making and making the call to move our county forward. There are a lot of heavy issues that are before our community, but there are a lot of wonderful things that are being done every day. And I echo the sentiment of Commissioner Richardson that if we all were to reflect, there's at least one thing that I think we have to be grateful for. And I pray that whatever that thing or those things are, that they carry you through this Thanksgiving season, and that we see you at our next Board of Commissioners meeting on the 4th Thursday of this month. Thank you, and we're adjourned.